Oh, there we go.
Hello and welcome to the MovieBoozer.com podcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and I'm joined today by Bill Leon.
Hello.
And that we seem to be flying on our own today, so we're a power duo.
Yeah.
Anyway, today's beer to talk about before we get down to the movies is, and I was hoping Hawk Ripjaw would be here because I think he might have heard of this, possibly, is called Moose Drool Brown Ale.
Oh.
Moose Drool. It's out of Missoula, Montana, from the Big Sky Brewing Company. And doesn't really have anything on it other than a picture of a moose just standing in a bog chewing on shit, which I have to say, I mean, moose drool is an interesting concept, so we'll see. Does it taste like what I would associate moose drool with? I guess we'll find out. Just in case you're wondering, I would associate moose drool with something. Actually, you know what? The fermentation of beer and the bacteria within probably is roughly the same content. Although, if moose drool was actually this color, then what the fuck has he been eating?
Black
All
tar
right.
heroin.
Let's see. Oh, potent smell. Dare I say, assy smell. Ooh, all right, let's give this a drink. Okay, it's not a bad taste. You know what it tastes like?
What's that?
Newcastle.
Wow.
I mean, it's a pretty typical brown ale. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy me some Newcastle. But, yeah, it'll do. So, moving on, our main topic, or rather our primary topic of the week, is to talk Guardians of the Galaxy anticipation. The movie comes out not this weekend, but the next, and unfortunately, the person we wanted to come here to talk about with us is not here today. So we're going to go ahead and just talk what we have. Our own personal interpretations, our own personal anticipation, what we are looking forward to, what we might be a little worried about, and what we've seen thus far that gets us excited. So, Bill, I'm going to put this question to you. What excites you most about what you've heard from this film thus far?
I mean, really, all I needed to hear was James Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
I've known like way before the hype even started. I've kind of been following this just because like I follow him on social media ever since I saw Super, and he's kind of been talking about this project for a while. That's the main selling point for me. But at this point, I think I'm hoping the ensemble cast gels really well together. I like a lot of these actors and actresses that they've got. You can never go wrong with Michael Rooker. From what I understand, his character is an assassin, like some kind of alien assassin.
I wonder if his name is LaFleurs. Yeah, but Michael Rooker is one of those actors. He's Hollywood helper. You put him in a movie, and he instantly makes that movie a little bit better, regardless of how the movie is quality-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really do appreciate that. I mean, also some other very solid actors who are going to be appearing: John C. Reilly, Benicio del Toro. Glenn Close is in it, which, I mean, I don't even remember the last thing she appeared in. This seems almost like a return for her. I mean, do you remember what she has done recently?
The Devil Wears Prada, but that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago, I think.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking it up right now. She was in a couple movies I haven't heard of. Love Marilyn, Low Down, Not My Life. Oh, Albert Nobbs. That's right.
Oh yeah, she was up for Oscars for that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
never saw that one, and I probably should. Yeah, that was 2011 though. So the last time she really was seen was a couple years ago.
Right.
With that said, Karen Gillan is also a very talented actress. Her appearances on shows like Doctor Who have made her very well known.
Hmm.
And I have to say Bradley Cooper is an actor who I'm still not 100% sold on.
Hmm.
I think he can be great or he can be mediocre, and I'm still not completely sold on it because it does almost feel like happy accidents to me. American Hustle just I don't know. It kind of, to me, it felt like he was being pushed. The quality of his performance was being pushed up, buoyed by some solid direction and a lot of very solid actors working against him, rather than him actually buoying the performance or the film himself. Vin Diesel has what is probably going to be the easiest performance in film history, because my understanding is Groot is only really able to say "I am Groot," if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I do believe that's true.
Well, I take it back. The easiest voice performance since the Iron Giant, in which Vin Diesel also played a giant giant creature who didn't say a whole heck of a lot.
That's a fantastic movie, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I love it, and honestly, the few lines he has in the movie are said very well. But I don't know whether they needed to hire a Hollywood actor to just say, "I am Superman."
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, can you imagine him in the recording studio saying these things? Superman.
I mean, hell, what about "I am Groot"? If that's all he says, can you imagine?
Well, I will say this. Like I said, I follow James Gunn on social media. He has basically. He has all but said, like, he's amazing in this. He basically said, like, all right, he only says I am Groot, but he brings it.
Oh, he knows all of the inflections to say it just perfectly well. So in a scene where he's nervous, I am Groot? Or in a scene where he's happy, I am Groot. You know what he's doing? He's basically, it's the Hodor performance. You haven't seen Game of Thrones, have
No.
you? In Game of Thrones, there is, in my honest opinion, the best character in the entire series is a character named Hodor. And the reason they call him Hodor, because no one really knows his name, is because the only word he knows is Hodor. And he's basically this giant tall dude who carries around a crippled kid, kind of like Master Blaster from Beyond Thunderdome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an emotional character. He manages to do so much in a character who can only say one word. And it's amazing how much emotion is brought from him just saying, Hodor! Yeah, if you get a chance to watch Game of Thrones, look for Hodor. I think he makes his first appearance somewhere in like the second or third episode, and his character just gets more and more screen time. I'm actually of the opinion that eventually Hodor will become the king of the Seven Kingdoms. If it doesn't break down that way, there is no righteousness in the world. And of course, knowing Game of Thrones as it is, and him being a fan favorite character, he's gonna end up killed sometime. God damn you, George R.R. Martin. So anyway, what excited me most about Guardians of the Galaxy when I first heard about it, and it's not even an aspect of the film so much as it is just a fact of it, that it's a different Marvel story based on superheroes that we've really not seen too much in the film media. I mean, there's never been a movie adaptation. There's definitely never been a TV series until recently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe they've been referenced offhandedly, but this is basically this is Marvel finding a group from the B Squad, not even the B Squad, the C Squad, and giving them a $170 million budget.
Well,
And
here's the deal. You know how Marvel constantly reboots their franchises?
Mm-hmm.
This specific adaptation of Guardians of the Galaxy is like a third-generation reboot, and I think it doesn't predate 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So it's relatively new, even in the comic book world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's fascinating. I actually like that they're taking a chance with a relatively new story and a relatively new universe to explore. Well, granted, it is technically set within the same universe as the other Marvel films, if I'm not mistaken.
Benicio del Toro was in Thor 2 as the same character.
At the very end, in the closing.
Yeah. Or is that just like, we need to tie this shit together?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the director of the future movie usually directs those scenes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Not always, but I'm pretty sure that Kenneth Branagh directed a scene involving Thor's hammer at the end of Iron Man 2.
Huh.
And I believe they did that with Captain America and such. It's probably just, they find a scene that, is going to pitch people on the next film, and they'll grab them and bring them in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I cannot wait to see, because I have intentionally done basically no research on this franchise, on Guardians of the Galaxy, simply because I want to be wowed. I want to see something. I want to go in with no expectations other than the people backing this movie and what they're capable of. And it is worth noting that the screenplay is done by James Gunn, and I don't know who Nicole Perlman is. The name isn't coming up as a link on Wikipedia, so I don't have the ability to click that. But I have faith in James Gunn as a screenwriter. I mean, in my opinion, he's written some of the most profound, hard R-rated movies of his generation. And with that said, I will say he did also write Scooby-Doo. So take that.
I've spoken on that. I can't speak for the sequel because he also wrote the sequel, but with that first live-action Scooby-Doo movie, you can tell that there was like a more dark, satirical script buried under a bunch of what I assume to be uncredited rewrites.
Yeah, I have no doubt that there might have been some revising, because James Gunn doesn't seem like someone who can easily...
I would love to read his original cut of that script, because I love Scooby-Doo, and like I said, there are little tiny moments in that film where you can tell that James Gunn may have had a hand in it, because they're actually like little clever moments, but they're so few and far between that I'm really convinced that this thing went through a slew of uncredited rewrites.
Well, with that said, anyone who wrote the screenplay for Romeo and Juliet deserves all of the Oscars. One of my favorite lines in the movie is, it's not even a famous quote, it's just this police officer who's getting angry. He shouts, and I actually looked it up here so I could quote it correctly. "Now you fucks have gone too far. Goddamn heads landing on cars while Long Island families are singing, 'Found a peanut?' They found a peanut, all right, honey. They found a peanut of death." Found a peanut of death. Yeah, that's... And get your goddamn tongue out of my goddamn cousin's mouth. You see, it's lines like that makes me wonder, and that's the one thing that worries me, is that James Gunn is great, at writing vulgarity, and this is going to be a PG-13 movie, so he's got to pull his punches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping for that to pay off ultimately. But we'll see. I think the biggest question is going to be, will audiences be interested in this movie? Because it is being made for damn near $200 million. I mean, including all of the promotion, it's probably over that. And no one's seen anything like this before. And it's not like, I mean, people have heard the name Thor. They've heard the name Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't exactly heard the name Star-Lord. So my question is this concept intriguing enough that you're going to get huge audiences to come out opening weekend?
I hope so, and I think that it'll divide the audience. I think between people, kind of the nerdier people, and the, you know what I mean. Like this separates the men from the nerds.
I have a feeling that this movie, we're making an assumption here, assuming the reviews are solid, probably a very modest for a Marvel franchise film, but still a respectable turn. And what I'm thinking is this might be more of a sleeper, where it doesn't make everything up front, but it might catch on over time, especially because we're going into August at this point. And for some reason, the term summer movie is almost a misnomer these days, because around mid-July, which is, if you've noticed the title of this particular thing, the movies start to dry up, and the films that are released in late July into August are usually the movies that the studios, while they could be big budget movies, they're usually the movies that the studios are not as sure about.
Can I confess something?
Yes?
Can I confide in you? Okay.
All right.
I hope this does so well its opening weekend, because the next weekend it has Ninja Turtles to contend with. And basically, I'm being a pessimist about this. I think Ninja Turtles is going to make some money. I think you're going to have these idiots, the same people that are keeping the fucking Transformers franchise alive. They're going to be right the fuck there. And, I mean, it's no secret that that's going to be a piece of shit. So I don't see Guardians beating that in its second week, but I can only hope. I'm hoping for you.
I'm not even thinking it's going to do a beatdown on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have a feeling that
I would love to
continue
see
to perform respectably if it proves to be a solid movie. Word of mouth, there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, there's a lot of people out there who have the same qualms about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as you and me, who might choose to go see that instead. In fact, it may split the vote. TMNT may still win out, but it may not. It may pull a, to use a antiquated political term, it may pull a bull moose out, which I have to explain now that I've said it. Theodore Roosevelt ran as a third-party candidate specifically to make sure that President Taft did not win another term in office, and he didn't even care if he won the election, to be reelected. He just cared about kicking out Taft. So what I'm saying is, while Guardians may not be in first place when TMNT comes out, it may be enough to make it a disappointment.
I hope so.
So, with that said, the rest of the films coming out in the coming weeks, you've got The Giver, which is being dumped very haphazardly the week after TMNT, and the same weekend as Expendables 3. Which, I read The Giver when I was in high school, well, actually middle school, and you know what? It's a nice little story for kids learning about. It's kind of I would call it a kid-friendly 1984, because it's got a happy ending, sort of. Yeah, 1984 does not. So that's probably a good way to describe it.
Okay. Expendables 3, let's talk about that for a second.
All right.
I never saw an Expendables movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never. Because the first one came out the same weekend as Scott Pilgrim, and I was big, big, big into Scott Pilgrim fever in
Mm-hmm.
2010. So that just kind of fell by the wayside. People are like, oh, Expendables. I'm like, go fuck yourself. There's this great movie by Edgar Wright out in theaters. It's fledgling. It's not making a lot of money. But you know what took home the gold? Expendables. Great.
I'm gonna go ahead and say my biggest problem with Scott Pilgrim to this day, and I've not read the comics, so
Right,
I'm
but that's
referring
the thing.
only to the movie. The biggest problem is he chose the wrong girlfriend. Period. He chose the bitch over the girl who actually was interested in him.
That they did that because of the comic book, and I don't want to get off into a whole Scott Pilgrim thing, but the original ending of that film was him choosing knives.
Really?
Yes, I think it's on the DVD, but they actually right before this film was done being shot, I think the last book came out, and then that's why they changed their minds because of how the book series wrapped up.
I see.
I completely agree with you, and the artist of the book series for a long time has said that he wants to do a sequel, but he's kind of like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to do it. I think if he does a sequel, it needs to be that relationship fucking failed, because what the hell was that?
Yeah, I mean, she's clearly a bitch who doesn't
Yeah.
care about him. She makes him do all of these horrible things and doesn't even show any iota of interest.
This is how teenage girls work, though. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Which I will agree with you. That is certainly it's more accurate as
But
to
no.
the
Wait.
people
Time
make
out.
in their relationships.
Time out. Because I just said teenage girl. She's supposed to be 24, I think, in the comic books.
All right, well.
So that's just inexcusable. That's just despicable behavior.
Well, Michael Cera isn't exactly a teenager either, so.
He's not. Yeah, they're supposed to be 23 and 24. He's supposed to be a year younger than her.
Overall, it's an entertaining movie. I'm just nitpicking just the ending pisses me off. And
I got off on a tangent there. Back to Expendables. Expendables 3 has Mel Gibson in it, and I don't know if I can't support anything with Mel Gibson in it. I mean, Lethal Weapon, sure, but this, after what he did, I don't know.
I don't morally censure that my artistic endeavors. Like if I hear about someone doing something horrible and yet they still made a good movie, it's not going to ruin my perspective of the movie because he's essentially being paid to play a part that he isn't, to play someone he isn't,
Right.
as opposed to him playing himself. Now, if it was introduced as, "Hi, I'm Mel Gibson,"
I would watch that every day.
well, it's a different aspect. That'd be more of a reality show than anything. Actually, to be honest, when you think about it, based on what we know from him, Lethal Weapon 1 might very well have been a reality program, and we just thought that it was all a joke. You know, the chronic suicide thoughts, the insanity, the alcoholism. Do you want to jump? Do you wanna? Yeah. You know what? The first Expendables was entertaining enough, but I have no need to watch it ever again. The editing in the action sequences is just fucking stupefyingly awful. Expendables 2 was a cut above that because I think the story is slightly more interesting.
Now that was by the director of Con Air, right?
Oh, jeez, I don't even remember.
I'm pretty sure Expendables 2 is by the director of Con Air, and I was hoping, like, Con Air is more or less a silly, self-aware, late 90s action flick, and I was hoping that kind of tone would come to this, but from what I understand, it didn't.
Yes, it was directed by Simon West. You're right, he did do Con Air. He's done some interesting movies as a director. I wouldn't call him like a great director. The Mechanic was an interesting remake of the far superior version with Charles Bronson. Yeah, Expendables 2 was watchable, and the only thing is by the end, I think they just say, fuck it, we're going to add cameos to the movie. And cameos is something that works as a novelty, but I think if you're going to make a whole series out of that, I don't know. I just can't. Yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what this is turning into, a lot of I don't knows. Let me just say that I probably will still see Expendables 3 in the theater because I did enjoy the experience watching them. It's just that I completely forget about the plot afterwards. The only thing I remember about Expendables 2 is what's-his-name gets killed, and I don't remember who what's-his-name is. The young kid who was put in there to bring in whatever... Oh, shit. Now you're going to make me look it up. God damn it. Expendables 2. And by the way, this is probably a spoiler for those who have seen it. Liam Hemsworth gets killed.
Oh, God. He's in that?
Yes, but he gets killed, and, like, brutally, so... Yeah. You hear me laugh with glee, it's because Liam Hemsworth is a no-talent hack riding on. He is the Donnie Wahlberg of the Hemsworth family.
Yeah.
He is the Frank... Actually, no, Frank Stallone's fucking talented by comparison.
Frank Stallone was a decent singer.
And his movie appearances are ridiculous, so...
Yeah, they're ridiculous, but he had some success as a singer in the 80s, so...
Yeah. Granted. So, with that said, I think we've pretty much touched on the new movies as much as... all we talked about was Guardians. You didn't see any of the 3 major new releases, did you? Nor did I have interest.
Well, let's kind of gloss over them real quick based on what we know. We have Sex Tape, which is directed by Jake Kasdan, who directed Orange County and Walk Hard, 2 movies that I particularly like. And then he directed Bad Teacher, and now this. And it's like, what happened?
What happened is Cameron Diaz is in the movie.
From what I've heard about Sex Tape, she is doing a lot better than Jason Segel is. Because from what I understand,
Jason Segel is someone who I've never been sold on. So I did just get you a copy of SLC Punk. He is in that, and he does act. He does act in it. Does he now?
I would say he's rather dynamic, personally, but
he was fine in Muppets. He's fine when he gets to be goofy and stuff. My understanding of this film is that it softballs material that deserved a much harder ball approach.
And that's the title of it is Sex Tape. But it's about iPads and shit. Like, you didn't use a tape. Nobody uses tape anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... Either way, I'm minimally interested.
Yeah.
Other movies from this weekend.
Planes 2. Let's talk about Planes. The reason I think the Cars franchise has lasted as long as it has is because I think it sells toys. Yeah, no, specifically, I think they make a shit ton of money from toys based on this stuff.
They are the only Pixar franchise that I know of that to this day has not gone out of print with their toys. And yes, I know the Planes films are not technically Pixar, but it's still a legacy of Pixar.
Here's the thing, though. Even if the Planes films aren't from Pixar, they announced a while back that they're going to do a third Cars movie.
Yep.
Pixar is, and that's like, why?
It's because they sell. It's
that Crispin Glover doing Charlie's Angels kind of thing. Like, we have to do this so we can do the projects we want to do.
Yeah, and to their credit, the next 2 years of Pixar films are going to be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They actually took this entire year off specifically to rewrite and redo a movie of theirs called The Good Dinosaur, which has a very interesting concept of dinosaurs, what if they never were extinct sort of thing. I like that. That's sort of a dinotopia kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dinotopolis, Theodore Rex.
Lord. Not Theodore.
Yeah, probably not. So, that's all I got to say about planes.
Yeah, I think, well, when the first Planes came out, I think, let me just say, when I saw the trailer, I thought it was a joke. I've said this before about trailers, but I literally thought this was a joke. Like, I thought Disney was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if we made a fake trailer? Like, what can we do with cars? Fucking planes. Let's make a fake trailer of that and put it on YouTube. Yeah. I would love you, for the record, Disney, I would love you a lot more if you did stuff like that. But,
that ain't gonna happen.
And then in the trailer, it's like Dane Cook is the lead, and I was like, what? Like I said, just kind of added to it, to where I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, that's... The relevance of Dane Cook is just...
Yeah.
Non-existent.
I will say this, Dane Cook...
Do not.
He had an appearance on the show Louie, and he seemed very earnest on that. I would just like to pretend in my head that the fictional Dane Cook is, which he probably isn't, more like the real Dane Cook, because him and Louie have this very down-to-earth conversation in the episode.
Is the conversation about the accusations of plagiarism?
Yes, it is.
That I might want to give a look at.
It's simply, good stuff. It's good stuff.
I admittedly, I'm not going to censure him for saying jokes that are relatively similar to other comedians, because that's just...
They're very basic bits. They're very basic.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing.
Yeah.
Stealing jokes is, I mean, I'm not going to accuse him of plagiarism. What I will accuse him of is being an unfunny douche. I've never seen a Dane Cook routine that I've found funny. I find his demeanor on stage to be obnoxious, and not comically so. If you're going to play the part of a douche on stage, at least be a funny one. Be like Sam Kinison and just be a complete maniac who just scares the shit out of you. Well,
Eddie Pepitone!
Yeah, Eddie Pepitone. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. That's actually a great example.
Yeah.
Have you seen, by the way, The Bitter Buddha?
I haven't. I've heard of it. I'm probably gonna. I hate iTunes and Apple stuff, so I don't want to buy it off of iTunes.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, is it? Okay, awesome.
Pretty sure it is. If I'm not mistaken, it may. You know what? It may be on Amazon Prime.
I'll rent it from there.
Yeah, you know what? It's worth it. The Bitter Buddha is really an engaging watch, and you get an idea of just that kind of the personality of someone who would go through that sort of spend so much time in the industry and still being relatively unknown. Yeah, I just checked Netflix as we were speaking. Unfortunately, it's not on Netflix, but it is on Amazon Prime, and so that means it might be $2 to rent.
Mm-hmm. All right, the last film on the docket is The Purge: Catching Fire, because we needed to give a Hunger Games kind of lore to The Purge. That's what I get from the trailer, anyway. Am I wrong? Am I wrong to say that?
No, you're not wrong at all.
Okay, yeah, because you know what scene I'm talking about, and it's like, why? Who? Is it because the Hunger Games are popular? Because you guys are not being subtle about this at all.
It's because we're making a sequel a year after we made the original movie, but we didn't actually stop to think, do we have anything to say?
Well, see, I don't care about that. Actually, The Purge: Anarchy has a very appealing trailer to me because it takes place in the city. It looks like it could almost be like a Warriors kind of thing, or like a Mad Max, like these gangs of people fighting to the death.
Yeah.
If they had a good script for that, it would probably turn out very well.
Mhm.
But the choices they're making in this are just baffling, and the movie's pretty much getting unanimously shit on by critics. So
I can't get past the whole purge concept because
yeah, it's stupid.
don't get me wrong, I'm all for unique concepts in sci-fi and fiction and such. That even if it doesn't make sense logically, if there's some sort of artistic quality to it. In fact, actually, here we go. I'm going to make a segue. Yes, Purge Anarchy looks interesting. I actually just saw, because it is available to rent on Amazon Prime currently, even though it's still in theaters, Snowpiercer.
It's on Netflix, you said?
No,
Amazon
Amazon.
Prime.
Yeah, you can
Amazon
rent it
Prime,
for
$80 a year.
Well, yeah, $80 a year, but you also get free 2-day shipping, which is
I
awesome.
don't buy shit from them that often, but I understand how that is very helpful.
I don't buy shit from other places anymore, really. I mean, that's how I make up that difference. But yeah, the movie is on Amazon. You can rent it, though. It's not free on Amazon. You can rent it for about the cost of a movie ticket. It's like $6.99 or something like that.
Oh, that's a lot cheaper than a movie ticket. At least here.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, in my area, I guess. But yeah, you can buy it, too. I think you can buy it for like $14 digitally or something.
Huh.
But anyway, Snowpiercer it's kind of a mindfuck of a movie. The concept, it's based on, I guess, a French graphic novel, something like that. And the story is this. It takes place in a not too distant future, about 10 years from now, where
in a not too distant future,
somewhere in time and space. Yeah. With that said, we meet a guy named Joel, and
wouldn't it be great if that was his name?
Yeah, that would be amazing. Holy shit! But no, it takes place 10 years in the future after an attempt to fix global warming fucks up.
Uh-huh.
And when I say an attempt to fix, it's the dumbest possible concept. Let's solve global warming by using chemicals in the atmosphere to cool the Earth manually. So what happens? The entire Earth freezes over like an ice cube, and everyone dies. Except, and this is where it starts getting a little hard to swallow conceptually, for one trainload of people on this super train, the super bullet train, that goes around the entire globe. Once a year, it makes a complete circumnavigation of the globe. And this train is a sampling of humanity, with the wealthy to-do people in the front of the train, the workers in the middle, and the poor, huddled masses in the back of the train. And the movie is basically it's done by it's in English, but it's directed by this Korean filmmaker, and the film is very much feels like a Korean action film. It has that distinctive touch to it, but the concept is a rebellion takes place amongst the poor in the back, and their goal is to make it to the front of the train and stop the train. And so, yeah, the movie is fascinating. There's a lot of subtext to it, despite it being essentially a stupid action movie. Great performances by all the actors involved. Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt's in it. Nice.
No, I'm sorry, Chris Evans.
Oh.
Chris Pratt. Yeah. Fucking Captain America is in it. Also, John Hurt, Tilda Swinton, who is just amazing in the performance. Octavia Spencer, Ed Harris is in it, although that's kind of a spoiler. But it's just, yeah, you know what? It's a damn fascinating movie. I'm not gonna say that it's going to blow people's minds, but I love the amount of just weirdness. It feels like if Terry Gilliam decided to make a big budget action movie, this is what we would come up with. I'm not even sure that that's a good idea, but somehow it's fascinating.
Yeah,
so without... go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was saying I'm intrigued. That's all I was saying.
So without further ado, I'd like to do a quick retrospective of some of my favorite performances from an actor who sadly passed away recently, James Garner. Now, are you familiar with James Garner's work, Bill?
I am not actually. Look, and this is probably pretty sad. But looking at his filmography, the only thing I really recognized was he played the villain in Atlantis by Disney, and yeah, that's not a strong villain. So
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm sure that's not his fault. I mean, that was kind of a weak period for them.
for Disney.
Yeah.
And yeah. Well, I will go ahead and do a brief overview of my experiences with James Garner. When I was a kid on television, in reruns on TV Land, there was the TV series, actually two TV series that he was a pinnacle member of. The TV series Maverick, which was a Western, and then the mystery series The Rockford Files.
Now, I will say this: I have seen The Great Escape, but not in like over a decade.
Okay. Well, he's great in The Great Escape.
Yeah.
He is one of the better parts of that movie. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that simply because, as an ensemble film, his character is probably has 15 minutes screen time. No, closer to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But he is one of the major characters, and he's very entertaining in it. With that said, Maverick was a Western on TV that may have been the prototypical example of a anti-hero character in a Western for television. And it was interesting in that, obviously, when you think an anti-hero, you think of you think of a darker franchise with a lot of violence, but in the case of Maverick, they got around TV censors by, instead of being violent, Maverick was an anti-hero just because he didn't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
He was a gambler first. He could handle himself in a fight, but if at all possible, he would choose not to. And that's why the show was so fascinating, as the character Brett Maverick was, in his way, the creative ways he found to get around the standard Western gunfight and to, accomplish his aims, his goal, in, a completely other means. That's something that show did well. The Rockford Files is a good mystery show. I haven't seen it for years, so I can't speak to it other than it was on for a long time, so yeah. My absolute favorite performances of James Garner, though, are from the 1-2 punch comedy westerns he did in the late 60s. In the late 60s, during a time when you had so many different westerns coming out, he did a film called Support Your Local Sheriff. Support Your Local Sheriff is kind of, in a way, it felt like Maverick the movie, because his character is a gunfighter who, once again, doesn't really like using violence, but can handle himself if he wants to. He rides into a town and he cleans it up. It's the writing, though, that makes this movie so fascinating. Besides James Garner, also stars Walter Brennan, Harry Morgan. If you may remember Harry Morgan from MASH as Colonel Potter. The movie has just such sharp, witty dialogue traded between characters. Oh shit, Bruce Dern's in the movie. So there's a connection to, if you're looking into modern day, this is what Bruce Dern was doing in the 60s. I'm hearing a lot of clicking on your end, Bill.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Just, anyway, yeah, and Support Your Local Gunfighter is not as good as the first film. It's basically the same movie with completely different characters in a slightly different setting. But it's one of those, what I like to call a Saturday afternoon comedy, in that you've got nothing to do, but you've also, you're also stuck at home. So put on put a movie on and laugh while you're doing other things. Support Your Local Sheriff, on the other hand, is fucking engaging, and it's a quick run. I think it's under 90 minutes, and it's highly worth watching. James Garner would also appear in other performances, like movies like Murphy's Romance. He appeared in the Eddie Murphy movie, the highly underrated Eddie Murphy movie, The Distinguished Gentleman, in a brief role as as a congressman who dies having sex.
I've actually seen that, but not in ages, like a really long time.
Yeah, he's Jeff Johnson, and when he dies, Eddie Murphy comes in and says, "Hey, I'm also Jeff Johnson," and he runs. So if you watch that movie again, there's your connection.
You know how I confuse Deliverance with Mississippi Burning?
Yes. Which is ridiculous.
I confuse what were we talking about? The
James
Eddie Murphy.
Garner.
No, the Eddie Murphy.
Distinguished Gentleman.
Yeah, I confuse that with Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which makes no sense.
Not at fucking all.
I think I watched them on the same night.
I guess Steve Martin was in SNL too.
Yeah,
but he wasn't even a major cast member.
You've got the Bowfinger connection. I don't fucking know.
All right. Well, at least you don't confuse Space Cowboys with Gravity. Which leads us into the last movie I want to mention with James Garner, which really, Space Cowboys is not ever going to be accused of being a great movie. Mm-hmm. Point in fact, it capitalized on the recent story of John Glenn, the aging, at the time, astronaut going back into space in his 70s. Mm-hmm. Which was, an interesting news story. And so Clint Eastwood, in his infinite wisdom as a director, said, you know what, why don't we make ourselves a movie with 4 aging people? And so you get Clint Eastwood, Donald Sutherland, James Garner, Tommy Lee Jones in space. And you know what? Those 4 guys sell the fuck out of it. It's a terrible story. It's a dumb story. It just... The characters, the actors, it's clear that you've got it's a fraternity of actors who have been everywhere, seen everything, and they are fantastic in the movie. I can't recommend this movie enough, especially if you have a grandpa that you want to watch a movie with. He will laugh his ass off, and he'll tell you stories about all of those actors. Meanwhile, you'll laugh your ass off just because James Garner, Donald Sutherland, Clint Eastwood, and Tommy Lee Jones go fucking great together. Mm-hmm. If there were 4 wise men, they would be them. It's really, I mean, I can't rant enough about how worthy that movie is of watching, in spite of the fact that it's kind of terrible. That's what's strange about it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you know what it is? It's Armageddon. If Armageddon starred nothing but Oscar-worthy performance actors.
That's really hard to picture.
Yeah, I know. And Armageddon actually had a decent cast in it too. It just sucks. Yeah. With the exception of Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi makes everything slightly better. Yeah. I mean, he made Con Air work for me. I didn't like Con Air really, except Steve Buscemi's character in that. Jesus Christ.
Con Air is a lot of fun. It's so dumb.
Yeah. Put the bunny in the box.
Yeah.
That movie, admittedly, does take pleasure in how stupid it is.
Yeah, and that's what I want. Well, that's the thing, is that's what I wanted from Expendables 2, and it's like, what happened?
What happened is they don't have Nicolas Cage in it.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's what saves The Rock as, in my opinion, the only really, really fun Michael Bay movie, is because you have scenes like Nicolas Cage lying down in a prison cell going, I take pleasure in gutting you, boy. I take pleasure in gutting you, boy. Oh, man. And Sean Connery, obviously.
Yeah.
But with that said, I think I've said enough about James Garner. He's a fantastic actor, and rest his soul. He had a great run. If you get a chance, watch some movie or a TV show that he is in. I'm sure there's on Netflix. I'm sure you can probably find something.
Yeah, type in his name.
Yeah. With that said, what I'd like to do now is change gears a little bit and talk about. Well, let me ask you, Bill. Did you put any thought into the space movie concept? We were talking about underrated space movies. I guess we kind of touched on that with Space Cowboys. But yeah.
Aside from a few animes that I'll probably talk about, which is a little strange for me to be talking about anime, but actually, I could talk about Red Dwarf. I've talked about Red Dwarf before, but Red Dwarf has kind of a fascinating premise to it, which is there's a mining ship with a bunch of employees on it. It's just kind of slowly dragging along through space. There's this one employee on the ship named Lister, who's your typical slacker, and he smuggles a cat on board the ship, which is contraband. It's a big no-no, and so they freeze him in time. They have this room called time stasis, and they put him in there. And while he's frozen in time, everybody on the everybody dies. We don't know about Earth, but on the ship, everybody dies. The whole basic premise of the series overall is that they're trying to go back to Earth.
Oh, yeah.
But, so basically it's just him, the computer, who has an artificial intelligence. He's a real smartass. And the computer has saved a hologram of his roommate, and they don't get along. He's always pulling rank on him and shit. And the other living creature aboard the ship is that the cat that he brought aboard went through evolution, and became a human-like creature.
Okay.
And that's almost basically the premise. Is that
so? How long was he in stasis for?
Like 1,000 years or something. I don't remember the exact number. It's something like 1,000 years.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's an interesting concept. So
if you dig the kind of humor in the Hitchhiker's Guide books, this should be right up your alley, because it's, I would say, rivals the work of the great Douglas Adams.
Ooh, rivals. Now that's heavy.
I gotta say, Red Dwarf, it's an institution of British comedy. Like it's got a pretty devoted fan base, and because it's a comedy show, but at the same time, like, they do stick to the sci-fi. Like, there's a lore to it, and it gets a little in depth at times.
Yeah, I definitely am interested. I mean, I've seen an episode here and there and just didn't quite understand what I was watching. Is it the kind of show you have to watch chronologically?
No, I think it depends on the season. Really, if you know the initial premise that I just explained, which is all in the pilot, you can probably drop in anywhere and understand. I think it's like season 3 or 4, they get a new crew member who is this robot named Crichton. And that's the only real major change. Well, no, you know what? There are things that do reference past events. It's probably better viewed in chronological order, but I wouldn't say it's completely mandatory, because I know that I jumped around when I first started watching it.
Okay. Well, then I will have to keep that in mind for my future viewing. Is that currently on Netflix?
I believe it is, yes.
All right. Well then, the films that I'm going to talk about, I have a trilogy, and it's not an official trilogy of any way, shape, or form. I
thought these aren't all by Roger Corman?
No, but they are all films that were released through Roger Corman's production company.
Ah, okay.
One of them is essentially a Roger Corman film. Even though he didn't direct it, it's kind of a movie that he spirited away himself. And we're going to actually, oddly enough, go in reverse chronological order with this.
Okay.
The first film is the one least related to this. These are space sci-fi films, all of which, in one way or another, are rip-offs of Star Wars.
Like directly, like unapologetically ripping off, right?
Well, in some ways. The first one I'm going to talk about less so, in that it's actually an unapologetic ripoff of Alien. That just happens to be also a have Star Wars elements to it at times. And that is Galaxy of Terror. All of these films, by the way, are free streaming on Netflix. Before I go further,
you might be able to find some of them on YouTube too. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. I'm pretty sure you can find these on YouTube. Galaxy of Terror takes place on a storm-wasted planet that where the survivors of a crashed spaceship are being killed off one by one by an unseen force. Does that sound like Alien? Yes, because it's basically a direct ripoff. What's unique about this film is the sets and the special effects. In many of it was actually designed by James Cameron. He built a lot of the special effects. He did a lot of the spaceship designs and such. Some of the alien designs.
Is this pre-Aliens?
It is pre-Aliens. In fact,
okay.
It's work on this and another movie I'm about to mention after this that would basically give him enough cred that they trusted him to work on Aliens.
Huh.
That's what Roger Corman did best as a producer in his time. And I'm sorry, there's a fruit fly that keeps, if you see me waving my hand, it keeps trying to buzz me. So, anyway. Yeah, James Cameron worked on it. And back to what makes Galaxy of Terror interesting. Imagine if Alien was just that much more fucked up. And in fact, you know the movie Sphere?
No.
Sphere was a mid-90s sci-fi film where these people go into this submarine that's been under... It's like these people in a submarine find an alien spacecraft underneath the ocean, and in it is this giant sphere that when they enter it, their worst fears kind of come alive to them. Sphere ripped off of this movie, directly.
Mm-hmm.
Galaxy of Terror has that same concept where they find out that...
Isn't that an element in Empire Strikes Back where he goes through the little cave tunnel?
Kind of. In fact, actually, you could say that ties it into Star Wars a little bit, too.
Yeah.
His worst fear, he ends up fighting himself and then the face mask blows open and he sees his own head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like that, except in Galaxy of Terror, if you let fear take over, fear will fucking kill your ass. And most famous and infamous in this film is what is known as the worm scene, in which a actress named Taff O'Connell is raped to death by a worm.
Eat your heart out, Evil Dead.
Oh yeah, it's fucked up. I mean, and the version which is currently available is edited from the original cut, which apparently was even worse. Mm. And it's grotesque because this was the time period where all aliens had to be slathered in friggin' Vaseline to make them all greasy looking and shiny, and just gross, just dripping with shit.
Thanks, H.R. Giger.
Yeah, imagine a giant maggot fucking a girl to death. That's Roger Corman. And actually, H.R. Giger probably, honestly, H.R. Giger probably saw this and thought about suing, I'll bet. Suing because of his dreams. Yeah, it's... Oh, man. It's a weird one. It's not a perfect movie by any means. It's definitely a low-budget movie. Apparently the budget was $1.8 million. It brought in $4 million because it's a Roger Corman film, and it's designed to make money. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for a movie to satisfy a dark, gloomy, just like fucked up series of on-screen death scenes, this'll work, even though the story is kind of a piece of shit and the acting is mixed. With that said, we're moving on to 1980 to Battle Beyond the Stars. This was Roger Corman's production company's big Star Wars epic.
Mm-hmm.
And is probably his most well-remembered. It has a screenplay by John Sayles, who would go on to be a very accomplished indie film director on his own. John Sayles did films such as The Brother from Another Planet, 8 Men Out, Lone Star. A lot of these movies that are really, indie darlings. Battle Beyond the Stars, though, I've talked about it on this podcast before. It is the Seven Samurai, or the Magnificent Seven, in space.
Ah, right.
Whereas Star Wars borrowed from Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. Or no, not Yojimbo, Jesus, Hidden Fortress. Mm. Actually, that's your next step. Let's do a Star Wars ripoff that is based on Yojimbo. But no, the Hidden Fortress, in which the concept of the Hidden Fortress, I don't know if... You haven't seen it, have you, Bill? No. It's a samurai film about basically these rebels who are fighting an emperor, except the main focus of the plot is on the two least important characters, who are these thieves, who basically, if you transplant that to Star Wars, are C-3PO and R2-D2. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that's interesting about Star Wars, is it's a movie about the same exact concept, following... More or less, the movie follows C-3PO and R2-D2, the two least important characters throughout that film.
Well, here's the deal, and this is a story that I'll never forget. Before I ever saw a Star Wars film, as a kid, I had a beach towel that had C-3PO, R2-D2, and Darth Vader on it. So for the longest time, I assumed they were the main characters.
Nice. Yeah, well, they're the more kid-friendly characters, I would say. But yeah. So Battle Beyond the Stars actually is a novel concept to say, you know what, we're not going to directly rip off of George Lucas. We're going to rip off of what George Lucas ripped off of. This movie is a legitimate adaptation of the Seven Samurai, which, of course, in the 60s was made into the excellent Western, The Magnificent Seven. If you haven't seen The Magnificent Seven, watch it. You said you've seen The Great Escape, right? But years ago?
Yeah, not in a long time, but yes.
The Magnificent Seven is from the same director, John Sturges, who was he was the master of ensemble cast films. And The Magnificent Seven is easily as good as the Great Escape in terms of just these big movies with a lot of big actors in it, all of whom have these great performances. Mm-hmm. And The Magnificent Seven stars, just to put this in perspective, Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, James Coburn, Robert Vaughn, Brad Dexter, and Horst Buchholz. Now, I say Robert Vaughn because who appears in Battle Beyond the Stars? Robert Vaughn, playing the same fucking character that he plays in The Magnificent Seven. He doesn't have the same name, but his character is exactly the same. So that's why I say if you see Magnificent Seven, look for Robert Vaughn's character and note that it's the same character. And how awesome is that 20 years later he would be asked by a B-movie studio, hey, do you want to come back and take the easiest paycheck of your life? You got this, dude. The movie also stars, Battle Beyond the Stars also stars John Saxon, Richard Thomas, George Peppard, Sybil Danning. It's a casting call of B-movie favorites. And if you're familiar at all, Sam Jaffe is also in it, and he was famously in The Day the Earth Stood Still. He was also famously in Gunga Din. I think this is one of his last performances because the movie was released just a couple of years before his death.
Mm-hmm.
The special effects, all the spaceships in Battle Beyond the Stars were designed by James Cameron and built out of things like milk cartons and cardboard. And you know what? They look pretty good, especially considering the main spaceship in Battle Beyond the Stars is a giant spaceship that looks like a combination between the Starship Enterprise and a pair of rockin' tits. And I'm not kidding. Look it up. And that's the wonder of Roger Corman is that's how you make your money. You make a low budget action movie that's entertaining enough, but insert some tits here and there. That's how you put asses in seats.
Oh.
Did you just look it up?
Hold up. Screen share. Check that shit out. Holy fuck.
Yep.
That is graphic.
Yes, it is. It's awesome too. I mean, it legitimately looks like the kind of spaceship you could expect from a sci-fi film. It just happens to be, to follow Rule 34 pretty closely. If you've dreamt of fucking the Starship Enterprise, this is the movie for you.
Well, titty fucking it.
Yeah, it's also worth noting the film's score was composed by James Horner. Now, everyone has accused James Horner of plagiarizing himself in recent years. What they may not realize is James Horner's score for Battle Beyond the Stars is almost ripped off wholesale 2 years later for his score, or no, a year later for his score for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is Horner said, you know what, that movie was a low-budget movie, no one saw it, so I'm just going to use this awesome, rousing score that I made for this film and just give it a little bit more budget. It's actually fantastic in either form, so I have no complaints either way, but I find it fascinating that, how close the two... Look it up on YouTube. You'll be shocked how similar they are to each other. I can't say enough. Battle Beyond the Stars is, of these three movies I'm talking about, the one that, while it's corny and it definitely has that Flash Gordon aspect of, yeah, this is a little bit, this is chintzy. It really is. The story is fun. The writing is hilariously bad, and the film craft is there though. It feels like these people cared. Speaking of people caring, the opposite is true with the final film on this list, which is Star Crash. Star Crash came out a whopping 18 months after Star Wars, and in fact, it could have come out earlier.
And this is one you watched last night.
I just watched it last night because I'd heard epic things about the film, and it is on Netflix, and if you do not watch this movie immediately after hearing this, holy shit. Star Crash is it was made by the Italian director Luigi Cozzi, and it was sold to Roger Corman's production company. The movie was made over a period of 6 months as they ran into money and out of money. It was a budgetary disaster. It ended up costing $4 million, which is approximately $4 million more than it looks like it was made for. It has some big actors in it, like Christopher Plummer, who's in it for about 10 minutes, and David Hasselhoff, who's in it for the second half of the movie, and then a bunch of people who you don't recognize except for the fact that they look vaguely European. And this film features some of the worst dubbing that you've seen in movies, including a giant C-3PO-like robot. Imagine if C-3PO carried guns and walked around like a cowboy and had an accent like a cowboy. It's ridiculous. No robot should have a southern accent and be like, "Hey, y'all, let's get in the truck."
Hey, it works on Futurama.
Hey, Little River Band's playing. Let's all go down in town. Yeah.
Y'all want to go see Little Feet?
Oh, hey, I like Little Feet, so.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, yeah, same thing. Um, it's a clusterfuck. First of all, the film has some of the most ridiculously bad editing that I've seen. You have moments in this film that are as badly edited as The Room, if not worse, because this movie had more money going behind it. It's almost worse that this movie cost more money and there are some special effects that are not terrible, and then there are some special effects that are fucking horrific. In fact, actually, Star Crash. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not seeing a good. Oh, here we go. All right. Bill, I'm going to blow this up onto my screen.
Go for it.
Hold on. All right, I'm sharing my screen with you. This is a scene that happens in the movie. I found an animated GIF of this.
Oh my goodness.
And you're thinking because it's an animated GIF, that it can't be that stilted in the actual movie. No, that is almost frame for frame what the movie looks like. So, what I can say is that that's what you get when you get Star Crash. You get a movie that is so little care was put into this film.
When did Ray Harryhausen pass? Did you think he saw this?
Oh, I have no doubt because there is a good amount of motion, of stop motion work in the film. But I have no doubt that Ray Harryhausen passed on it. I don't know that he was asked. I did look it up online and didn't see anything related to that.
Okay.
Now, just to put this in perspective, the actor Christopher Plummer, when asked about this movie and why he chose to do it, the quotation that he has gone down in history. He said, "Give me Rome any day. I'll do porno in Rome, as long as I get to go to Rome."
All right.
So that is an actor who knew what he was getting into and just didn't give a shit. And it's clear because even his performance is lackluster at best in the film, and he's probably the best actor in the movie. And in fact, he's probably the best actor in any of the movies that I've mentioned. And the movies I would compare this to would be this has the special effects of Troll 2. It has the acting and the editing of The Room, and the screenplay of Birdemic. Actually, no, the screenplay of Birdemic is far less interesting. This is a howler. I found myself laughing, rolling around on the floor. And when I say rolling around on the floor, I mean literally, I fell off of my fucking couch laughing so hard. And I was the only one watching. I was alone. I didn't have anything to prove here. That just happened. I convulsed during this movie. And you will too when you watch it. And particularly if you happen to have imbibed in the alcohol. So, all three of these films are available on Netflix, and all three of these films were released in Roger Corman's production studio. I would say, in order of where I would go first, I would say for pure laughing entertainment value, just Star Crash is essential. The best film, Battle Beyond the Stars. The most interesting film is if you're looking for something just really fucked up and dark, would be Galaxy of Terror. None of them are without their merits, though. All right. Well, with that said, do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
Yeah, well, the whole point of this, I guess, is like sci-fi stuff to check out in preparation for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Absolutely.
And I'm not super big into live action sci-fi, but
Okay.
there are a number of animes that I've come across in my days that I have taken a liking to. First, I'm going to talk about Dead Leaves. Dead Leaves is
In the Dirty Ground?
No. Good. It's a White Stripes song, though, right?
It is a great song from the White Stripes.
Dead Leaves is by the great Studio Gynax, who did Fooly Cooly. I call it FLCL. That's what it's abbreviated as. That's what, as a kid, when it would come on Toonami, that's what they advertise it as. To me, it's always going to be FLCL, but I guess the proper way to call it is Fooly Cooly. There's some sci-fi stuff to that. Fooly Cooly is a 6-episode miniseries. It's more or less a coming-of-age story, but at the same time, it's an animation. It's a very fresh, like this was their first project, very fresh animation studio saying, how much can we experiment? And they go all out. Fooly Cooly is, I consider it one of the greats of anime, personally. And I'm not alone in that. A lot of people feel that way. But Gynax did Dead Leaves, which was just this one-off 45-minute short. It starts off with this guy with a TV for a head and this girl. I think they rob a bank, and they get into this huge police chase through this city. Mm-hmm. They're eventually apprehended and taken to a prison on the moon, where I believe they're put in straitjackets, and they bang each other to get out of the straitjackets, which is really fucking weird. But then the rest of it is pretty much this psychotic prison break, and the animation is on fucking speed. It is so frantic and ballistic, but it's a lot of fun. It really polarizes a lot of people too, like especially Gynax fans. A lot of people just say this is too reckless, this is too crazy. Newsflash, that was entirely the point of it. But it's good stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of very just spastic, crazy animation. A lot of stuff flying around, hitting walls. Very physical stuff. But that's Dead Leaves. Not too much into sci-fi. I know that recently you just saw all of Cowboy Bebop, which is
I did.
Big sci-fi anime. So run that down for me. Just what were your experiences with Cowboy Bebop?
Well, my experiences with Cowboy Bebop are I had a friend who is a huge anime fan, and he's been bugging me endlessly to get into anime for a long time. It's never a thing that's really appealed to me. There's some aspects of it, the eccentricities, just kind of turn me off. Mm-hmm. I did sort of a couple of years ago crack into it a little bit, and then I started watching a little bit of Sergeant Frog, but then that was pulled from Netflix, so I haven't seen it since. I did enjoy, the writing of that show, and then I suddenly was introduced to Cowboy Bebop just because my friend Al said, "Hey, every Tuesday for the next blah 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 weeks, want to come over to my house and watch Cowboy Bebop, and then watch a movie or something like that." And I was like, sure, why not? So we blew through Cowboy Bebop in about 4 weeks. We ended up not watching movies, just watching episode after episode after episode. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's a fucking fantastic sci-fi series.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
The writing is existential and creative. There's a lot of humor, particularly when it comes to the character Ein, the dog, who is always there. He's sort of the ever-present silent character who comments on scenes, usually in the most humorous ways possible. While at the same time the stories deal with some really heavy concepts, and it really could have been. You could have nowadays with a big budget made like an HBO series out of this, but it works so well in the animated format because it's so free. There's so much you can do with it, and it's so forgiving in terms of how you accomplish certain action sequences, and I loved the hell of it out of Cowboy Bebop.
Now, Cowboy Bebop, at least until Ed is introduced, it really deviates from kind of the cartoony nature of a lot of animes. Cowboy Bebop has always played it very cool. You know, it's the James Dean, it's the Fonz. It's just very
Right.
cool. It's very subtle.
It always
And-
ends. It always ends with the subtitle, "See you, Space Cowboy."
Yeah, it's so slick. Yeah, and the soundtrack is amazing. Like time after time. Like it's just so consistent, so solid.
The jazzy soundtrack, the mixture of jazz and the occasional like indie pop songs and stuff, it really fucking rules.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about it. I actually also watched the Cowboy Bebop movie afterwards, which really plays like just a solid, lengthy episode of the series. It's not essential to watch, but it is. If you are someone who craves just a little bit more Bebop, it's a good film to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say enough about what I found to be just fascinating.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Like I said, Bebop is a lot more subtle about the fact that it's an anime than the next show I'm going to talk about, which is Trigun. And admittedly, Trigun has a lot more of a Western bent. I think you could probably call both of these series space westerns, but Bebop leans more towards the space, where Trigun leans more towards the Western.
Oh, okay.
Trigun takes place on this desert planet called Gunsmoke, and the whole basic premise of it is that there's this guy called Vash the Stampede, and nobody really knows anything about him, but he has the largest bounty on his head of anyone on the planet, and this planet is crawling with bounty hunters. He has such a large bounty on his head that, and this isn't explained very well, it might be a lost in translation kind of thing, but there's an insurance company that sends out two girls to keep an eye on him and make sure he doesn't get killed, because insurance, they don't really explain it like too well, but basically, like, okay, so this guy has a huge bounty on his head. They kind of build him up to be this badass character. The first time you see him is like he gets he's sitting in a bar drinking, and these guys like blow away the whole bar with their guns. Like, they shoot up everything to the point where it's just him sitting on a bar stool with like a little bit of the bar left. And it starts playing it super straight, like he's about to have this badass moment. He stands up and looks at him all badass, and he pulls out his gun, and he fires it, but he's out of bullets, so he, fires 3 clicks of nothing. And then he goes into stereotypical anime freak-out mode, where he gets super cartoony and over the top. And I like that. That's very derivative of the Trigun style, is that you think this is going to be some badass shit, but then it's like, no, this is kind of some goofball shit.
That's interesting. So it like subverts your expectations.
Yeah, it does that a lot. At least in the first half of it. Once you get into the reason Vash has such a big bounty on his head, then it starts to get more dramatic. I feel like the writers of the show, or possibly the manga, because I'm not sure which, you know what I mean, because it's, those
well,
kind of
and Cowboy
transitions.
Bebop is like that too. I mean, the later episodes definitely have a little bit more heavy subtext to them for the most part.
That's a general anime thing, because usually, especially in that time period, it was usually like you would get a 26-episode deal, and you didn't know if there was going to be more than that, so it'd usually be like, all right, try to wrap this shit up in 26 episodes.
Yeah, a lot like BBC shows,
Yes.
to a great extent, have to be. You have 7 episodes and you've got to finish your arc.
Yes, it's very similar to that.
Well, either way, yeah, I will look up Trigun. Is it on Netflix?
It is, yes, and I think very recently, like 2 or 3 years ago, the same animation team and writers got together and did a movie, which furthers the story. I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things.
Is the movie on Netflix?
I believe so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think I will check out Trigun then on your recommendation, if only because I would like to. I'm a big sucker for space westerns.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys and Aliens. I actually enjoyed. I mean, it's not the best movie, but
like I said, it all kind of boils down to how tolerant you are of those anime tropes, of how cartoony the characters can get, and how, like the expressions and everything.
The thing that throws me off a lot is sometimes when the face changes completely to where their face is animated normally, and then all of a sudden their mouth becomes big and starts flashing.
Now, well, here's the thing. Here's the thing
like
about that. And this is a very minor point, but take Sailor Moon. She's age aside, a pretty girl, but they'll have her go to these cartoony, ridiculous places. So it's not like I like that. I like that it's not like, oh, we need to have her be this object of affection the whole time. She can, branch out and be silly and goofy. I appreciate that kind of thing.
I will give it a try. And how many episodes do you think I should give it a try? Is it one that leads off really well in the first episode, or?
Well, it's pretty episodic up until this one character comes into play later.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll probably know who he is when he gets there.
Okay. I will give it a look. So, with that said, I think we've reached the end of another wonderful podcast. And we'll join next week. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't come out for another week after that, but this weekend we have some somewhat interesting movies coming up, in that we have Hercules with The Rock, and we have Lucy, which looks like a huge piece of unmitigated shit as far as I'm concerned.
The Rock in Hercules looks a lot more entertaining than that does.
And yet it's still a movie starring The Rock about Hercules, which tells me it's probably low budget. But we'll see. Who knows? The reviews of both films have been moderately okay. So we will see those, and so it goes, which is the name of another movie coming out this weekend that I will not be seeing because Rob Reiner has not done a good movie as a director in a long time.
Yeah.
A long-ass time. In fact, I think the last movie of his was probably A Few Good Men. That was 92.
Yeah. Pre-North.
Yes, pre-North. And A Few Good Men had the advantage of an Aaron Sorkin screenplay. So that's, a big choice.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, join us next week.
Like and subscribe on YouTube. Have a good night, everybody.